Translator, Henyi. Editor, Henyi. After 10 days, half of the recruits had already fallen by the wayside. 2 months later, it was likely that not even half of those remaining would endure. Yet, by this time, the survivors were no mere weaklings. Their endurance and strength had been tempered, and the first stirrings of military discipline began to manifest. Though they still lacked the refined prowess of seasoned soldiers, they demonstrated the early signs of extraordinary potential. A month later, the elimination rate had slowed to a crawl. Only 100 had managed to survive. 3 days from now, you will each be assigned to one of 10 small groups, and each group will be tasked with a mission. Afterward, I will assess your performance. The group with the lowest score will be eliminated, announced Xiao Yongnian, his voice laced with cold authority. A murmur of shock spread among the recruits, and many found this news unacceptable. If I am placed in a group full of incompetents, won't I be dragged down and doomed to fail as well? They thought. Xiao Yongnian's voice cut through their concerns. This is a test of unity and team spirit. If a group cannot even coordinate effectively, how can they hope to join the army? His eyes swept over the recruits. I would rather have a team that works together than one with a lone hero. Ling Han, listening from the back, nodded quietly to himself. He remembered the time when the Lunar King led a group of deity transformation tier soldiers. Mere cultivators of that level had banded together to withstand the aftermath of a battle that had shaken the heavens themselves. That was the power of unity. Naturally, they must have used some sort of formation to combine their strength, but still, the sight was awe-inspiring. How I wished to learn such formations, Ling Han thought to himself. The mission at hand was to wipe out a group of bandits. These bandits, once legitimate business people, had fallen under the sway of a deity transformation tier elder. The Purple Moon Empire had already swept through and eliminated the elder, yet a few had surrendered. Recently, the 5 great sects had covertly stirred a rebellion within them, and they had become bandits, plundering the common folk in the mountains. Their actions meant to weaken the power of the Purple Moon Empire. Though a handful of spiritual infant-tier cultivators made up their ranks, they were not a significant threat. The Purple Moon Empire had no need for a full-scale war, and thus treated them as a training target for recruits like the ones in Ling Han's group. Even if the bandits' deity transformation tier elder were still alive, Ling Han knew he could crush them easily. However, in the name of cultivating team spirit, Ling Han refrained from demonstrating his full strength. For now, he would play the part of a flower blossom tier cultivator. They were being taught a formation that would fuse the strength of 10, creating a combined power at 50% of their full potential. Do not underestimate this, for in cooperative attacks, the more participants there are, the harder it is to maintain the full effectiveness. If numbers alone could win a battle, even body-refining tier warriors would be able to slay shattering void tier experts. But in reality, only those in the heaven tier could use numbers to overwhelm a shattering void tier cultivator. For the deity transformation tier, no matter how many they were mere cannon fodder against the might of a shattering void expert. Thus, to retain half of a group's combined strength was a feat of tremendous power. They had only 3 days to perfect this array. When the time came, they would face off against the bandits, whose spiritual infant tier members numbered no fewer than 4, outnumbering their group of 10. Fear and anxiety gripped the recruits as they threw themselves into their training. The threat of elimination and death was very real. Each group selected its strongest member to serve as the formation's core, the eye of the array, who would command the group's combined strength. Ling Han, with his unmatched power, was naturally chosen to lead his group. The groups were evenly matched. Some had spiritual infant tier cultivators, while others had nothing above flower blossom tier. Each team would fight according to their strength. Those with fewer strong members would face weaker enemies, while the more powerful groups would confront the bandits head-on. 3 days later they set off. The bandits were not far off, only half a day's journey away. Upon arrival, Xiao Yongnian gave the command to launch the attack. Ling Han, now a soldier of the Purple Moon Empire, observed the methods of attack he had once watched from the sidelines, but now, as a mere private, he was immersed in the experience. The difference in perspective was stark. A team of 10, bolstered by the formation, was an unstoppable force. With their strength fused into a single mighty blow, even the weakest group had the combat prowess of a flower blossom tier cultivator. As they pressed forward, the bandits' forces were forced to reveal their spiritual infant tier elites. A fierce battle ensued. Ling Han held back, raising his power to just 2 battle stars of the spiritual infant tier, leading his group to face the enemy. The battle raged for nearly 3 days before the bandits were completely defeated. The Purple Moon soldiers lost 7 in battle, with 18 more injured. Given the disparity in strength and numbers, the success was extraordinary. Even Ling Han had to admit this was a textbook example of how the weak could defeat the strong. If he had led the troops in his true form, he doubted anyone would have survived. 7 dead. Xiao Yongnian barked, his voice grim. You are all useless. 3 died in Gong Fei Yang's team, 2 in Su Cheng Wen's, and another 2 in Jian Qi Zheng's. You all fought for personal glory, didn't you? Gong Fei Yang and Su Cheng Wen, both of whom were at the spiritual pedestal tier, could only lower their heads, unable to argue with a spiritual infant tier expert. But Jian Qi Zheng, an elder of the spiritual infant tier, scowled and retorted, 3 spiritual ocean tier cultivators died, but we took down a spiritual infant tier. Tell me that was not worth it. Xiao Yongnian's expression darkened. You think you can sacrifice your teammates for the sake of merit? You treat your comrades as tools? You are dismissed, he declared. What? Jian Qi Zheng's face flushed with rage. As a spiritual infant tier cultivator, he was considered a master in this camp. To be dismissed was an insult he could not accept. He swept his robes, drawing a black sword that radiated a dark, ominous aura. If you want me to leave, give me a complete 8th tier cultivation technique, or else I'll slaughter every last one of you. Xiao Yongnian sneered. You didn't even pass the new recruit training, and you dare ask for a cultivation technique? Jian Zheng scoffed. If you don't hand it over, I'll show you what happens when you refuse. He gripped his blade, the air thick with malevolent energy. Xiao Yongnian, hands clasped behind his back, stepped forward, his eyes cold and sharp. Are you courting death? He demanded, his voice a low growl. Jian Zheng's laughter echoed through the air like the crack of thunder. Ha 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 ha! All these days I have concealed my true power, and yet you still, he taunted, pointing a finger at Xiao Yongnian. I have long seen through your tricks. Your array of combined strikes is nothing before me. Your weaknesses are laid bare. Breaking it will be a mere flick of the wrist. His expression darkened, growing as cold as the edge of his black sword. Hand over the cultivation technique now, or I'll send you to your grave. His voice rang out like a death knell, and the dark energy swirling around his sword surged ominously. Xiao Yongnian's heart clenched. His opponent stood at the pinnacle of the spiritual infant tier, and with a spirit tool in hand, his strength was formidable, easily surpassing 10 stars. But Xiao Yongnian's own battle prowess was but 8 stars, and he knew full well that in direct combat he stood no chance. The military officers of the Purple Moon Empire were renowned for their discipline and unity on the battlefield, their teamwork deadly in large-scale engagements. But on their own, few could match the power of a high-ranking individual like Jian Qi Zheng. A cold sweat dripped down his back. If his comrades couldn't withstand such an assault, how could he hope to stand against it alone? He glanced at his team, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. Jian Qi Zheng was no fool. He had already figured out their secret array, and it would be easy to break. Return to the camp immediately. Xiao Yongnian commanded sharply, his tone brooking no argument. Instructor, they shouted in unison, but Xiao Yongnian's command was final. Obey, he barked, his voice cutting through the tension. Jian Zheng's laughter rang out again, mocking them as he raised his black sword. You think you can escape? No one leaves here alive. His intent to kill was unmistakable, a ruthless determination to silence any potential witnesses. Run! Xiao Yongnian shouted as he turned, his eyes filled with resolve. I'll hold him back? You? Hold me back? Jian Qi Zheng sneered, raising his black sword high, eyeing them all like insects to be crushed underfoot. His presence alone filled the air with an oppressive weight, and the others felt their hearts race with fear. Ling Han, standing among them, knew the stakes. 2 months of hard training had forged a bond among them, and though they had grown close, they were still no match for a peak-level spiritual infant like Jianqi Zheng, especially with his spirit tool in hand. A sudden, violent gust of wind swept through the clearing, accompanied by a powerful aura that nearly crushed their spirits. It was so overwhelming that several of them gasped, feeling a sharp pain in their chests. From the shadows, an old man appeared. His presence was not imposing, his figure unimpressive, but the sheer weight of his aura brought a chill to the air. "Which one of you is Ling Han?" he asked calmly. Jianqi Zheng, irritated by the interruption, turned his gaze toward the old man. "Who are you? Do you think you can meddle in my affairs?" he spat coldly. Before the words could fully leave his mouth, a resounding crack echoed, and Jianqi Zheng's body was ripped apart as though struck by a divine hammer. Blood and gore splattered across the ground, the remains of the once proud warrior now nothing more than a gruesome mess. The sight of Jianqi Zheng's disintegration left the onlookers frozen in shock. The old man had struck without effort, his single blow enough to annihilate a peak spiritual infant. He was an existence beyond their comprehension. Could it be? A heaven-tier cultivator? Xiaoyong Nian, though stunned, quickly gathered himself. "Senior, may I know how I should address you?" he asked, clasping his hands in respectful salute. Though the old man had saved them, Ling Han was still his subordinate, and the old man's presence suggested he wasn't here for a casual visit. The old man glanced at Xiaoyong Nian with a flicker of indifference. "My surname is Yu. I do not wish to make an enemy of the Purple Moon Empire. Hand over Ling Han, and I shall leave," he stated plainly. At the mention of the name Yu, a spark of recognition ignited within Ling Han. He knew who this was, the seventh elder of the Yu family, a figure from his past. This elder was likely seeking retribution for the death of Yu Xuanying, a confrontation that had occurred during Ling Han's time in the Mystery Realm. Though it was who knew who had killed Yu Xuanying, the blood debt had still been marked on Ling Han's head. The seventh elder of the Yu clan was an elite heaven-tier cultivator. No mere mortal could stand against him. Xiaoyong Nian, though resolute, could never hope to match such a foe. But as Ling Han prepared to step forward, the tension thickened. "Senior, I can't let you harm my troops," Xiaoyong Nian insisted, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. Ling Han stepped forward, his voice calm but resolute. "Instructor, this man is the seventh elder of the Yu clan, a heaven-tier cultivator." The revelation stunned everyone into silence. The heaven-tier, so close to the peak of cultivation, was a realm few had the fortune or misfortune to witness. To them it was as though they were standing before a god. Xiaoyong Nian stood frozen, momentarily dazed by the weight of Ling Han's words. Then, with iron resolve, he declared, "I will protect the men under my command, no matter the cost." Ling Han smiled softly. "At least you're still alive for now, instructor." He had moved quickly to pull Xiaoyong Nian aside, avoiding the elder's strike in the nick of time. With the danger now clear, the seventh elder of the Yu clan was no longer interested in negotiations. "You've killed one of mine, and so you must pay the price," he said, his voice growing colder. "Choose how you will die." Ling Han's lips curled into a grin, defiance in his eyes. "I will choose to die of old age." He proclaimed boldly. The seventh elder sneered. "That is not possible," he said, raising his hand. But just as the elder prepared to strike, a voice rang out through the air. "Who dares to stand in my way?" The voice was familiar, brimming with heroic spirit, and it carried an undeniable force. "Who?" the seventh elder demanded, his eyes snapping around in search of the speaker. "Show yourself." But the speaker remained elusive, their presence masked by the waves of energy crashing through the battlefield. The seventh elder's gaze flicked from side to side, trying to locate the source of the challenge. "Do not hide. If you dare to interfere, I shall destroy you as well." Ling Han's heart skipped a beat. The voice, he knew it. He wasn't the only one who had recognized the presence of the mysterious figure. The battle had just become far more complicated.